So good evening, everyone. Myself, Gayatri. Thank you for joining today's webinar. I welcome all of you on behalf of Vartana. This webinar is the third webinar of this quarter under the theme 21st Century Schools. Today's webinar, we will be focusing empowering your teacher through skill building with language learning. Earlier in the past two webinars, we discussed about how mental health is important for 21st century and what are the essential skills a student must have in the 21st century. Today, we'll be focusing how language learning can impact the skills of basically 21st century skills. Before moving on to, let's look at the agenda of today's webinar. We'll start with a small introduction and we'll discuss about the session objectives. We'll also look at what is language learning and its importance, and then we'll see how this can impact the skill development and what are the effective strategy a teacher can conduct inside the classroom, and how supportive online tools and resources are available, what are the Vartana programs are available, and then we'll close the session with the feedback form. So before starting, I'd like to have a small introduction poll. I'll launch a poll. So I just wanted to understand the participant profile. Please select a suitable option. So I've launched a poll. So please select the suitable option. So I'll just stop the poll. So as you could see, we have like more teachers on the session today, and we also have a good number of school leaders. Thank you for casting your poll. Moving back to the session. So let's look at the objectives of today. So we have three main objectives for the day. First one is to understand what is language learning and its benefits, and what are the different approach a teacher can take to make sure children are gaining skills through language, and how can we use technology tools and digital resource to enhance the learning experience. First, let's understand what is language learning, right? So basically, language learning is that it's a process. Basically, it's an ability to acquire or ability to understand, speak, read, and write a language. Be it any language, be it your regional language or your mother tongue or English or any other foreign language. So the process of acquiring all these is called language learning. It can happen either in formal setup or informal setup. For example, formal setup means inside a classroom. So the teacher will be teaching all the rules and how to speak, how to read, how to write. That's a formal setup. Whereas informal setup is that a student is talking to his friends, neighbors, or reading certain materials in the online. All these comes under informal setup. So basically, language learning itself is a complex and ongoing practice. It requires a lot of dedication and continuous practice to become proficient in that language. Yeah. So language learning, language learning, it's not about just reading or writing a particular language. It has more benefits beyond reading and writing. It has a lot of cognitive benefits. That's why even NEP stressed about language education. So it has also proposed key changes related to language. For example, it has included multilingualism. It has included three language formula. It has encouraged students to pursue any foreign language or learn any foreign language, and also stressed upon early language development. All these things gives us an evidence how much language learning is important. It's beyond reading and writing, and we will see everything in detail in today's session. So first, let's look at what are the importance of language learning overall for a student. Right? There are many benefits. The first benefit of any language learning is for communication purpose. Right? The student should be able to communicate their thoughts in a clear, precise, with a lot of clarity. So language plays a major role in communication. So that's the very first benefit. The second benefit is cognitive development. So a lot of study has shown that language learning has direct benefits to enhancing memory, problem solving skill, and critical thinking. There is also research study which says that when we learn a lot of new language, the cognitive or age related cognitive decline will be delayed. The third benefit is academic achievement. It's very evident, right? When the child is good at particular language, let's take an example of English. So if a child is good at English, he or she can learn other subject very easily because they're able to understand, comprehend. So all these things can happen and they can perform very well in their academic also. The next benefit is career and higher education opportunities. In this fast developing world, it's very important to be proficient in global languages like English, right? So it will open door for million career opportunity, or it will give lot of leverage for a student to get admission in the top university. Next is cultural appreciation. So when you learn a language, you learn about that particular tradition or culture behind that language. So you will start to develop that appreciation towards that particular culture. And it also gives empowerment because students can communicate their thought in a clear, in with a lot of confidence, right? That itself gives a lot of empowerment to them. It also helps to develop empathy. Through cultural appreciation and through language learning, students are able to understand the perspectives of different people. They are getting opportunity to interact with different native speakers who speak that particular language. Thereby, there is a good chance of developing empathy. Next, the benefit is personal growth. So, as I said earlier, language learning itself is a complex process, right? So, when you become a proficient in particular language, which means you are attaining certain level of achievement through lot of dedication, discipline, practice. That itself is a personal growth. And finally, global citizenship. What do I mean by global citizenship is that this language learning nurtures global citizenship. How? By promoting cross-cultural communication. Because you know that language, you can communicate with different people, you can collaborate with people from diverse background, you get awareness about global issues. All these things can be nurtured through language learning. So this is an overall benefit of language learning, right? Let's get in detail with respect to student and their academics. Language development has significant impact in developing skills and competency, right? So before moving on to that, I just want to understand, can anyone share an example of a skill? Like, what do you think is a skill and what do you think is a competency? You can either put it in a chat box or if you can put it in a Q&A session. What do you think is a yes, ma'am, I'll go a little slow. Sorry for being quite fast. What do you think is a skill? Can you give an example? Or what do you think a competency is? Can you share an example? Please put it in chat or Q&A box. Or you can even raise hand and you can talk about it. Deepa ma'am, you have raised your hand. I'm just going to unmute from my end. Please unmute your microphone so you are able to talk. Others, please put it under poll or sorry, put it in the chat or Q&A box, please. Deepa ma'am, can you hear me?
Repeat once again, ma'am. It came half.
Yes. So can you share an example of what skill is? Any example?
Yes.
Skill.
Skill means which all the specialty is there in with us.
Okay, great. Any example, ma'am?
Skill dancing, singing, ma'am.
Wonderful. Dancing, singing. Ma'am, can you also share any example for competency, if possible?
Competition means singing competition,
Competency.
dancing competition, sports competition.
Okay. Ma'am, I asked about competency.
Competency. No, ma'am. Sorry.
It's okay, ma'am. Thank you for sharing your input, ma'am. Thanks, Deepa, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
So, as ma'am rightly said, skill and
అది
competency, she
ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತು.
has given some examples. Ma'am, I'm just going to mute. Thanks, ma'am. So, ma'am has shared few examples. Let's also look at what is skill and what is competency. Basically, skill means you are acquiring something through learning and practice, right? And it involves use of knowledge and technique to accomplish certain tasks. Let's take an example of driving. Let's take bicycle. In our childhood, everyone must have tried riding a bicycle, right? So how did you learn? It didn't happen in one day, right? First, you try to understand what are the parts of a cycle and how to pedal, how to apply brake, how to do all these things simultaneously, right? How to engage your hand movement, eye movement, and leg movement continuously so that you are riding the cycle. Slowly, once you've learned, once you gain that knowledge, you slowly did practice. Every day you try to ride a cycle and then you gain confidence and then you started driving, right? So this is the best example of skill. Skill is something which you can learn and it requires a lot of practice, and you can apply to apply those knowledge to complete any task. Some of the example, right, like ma'am mentioned, singing, dancing. Apart from that, like writing or playing a musical instruments, problem solving, all these comes under skill. Whereas competency means it's a broader concept, right? It's a combination of knowledge, skills, attitude, behaviors. So here, integration of skills are needed to be successful in domain. For example, let's take an example of leadership. We have so many school leaders in today's session, right? Being a school leader is not just one skill; it's a competency, right? You need to be good at time managing, you need to be good at people managing, you need to engage with parents, you need to be get updated about education, you need to be engaging with others, you need to be competitive. So all these skills are required to become a successful school leader. So leadership is one example of competency, whereas others are like teamwork, cultural awareness, right? In today's session, we'll focus majorly on skill part, like how we can impact or how we can inculcate 21st century skill in students through language learning. So that's the basic objective of today's session. So let's get deep dive in with respect to skill. So we all know, like through language learning, certain skills can be developed. For example, the first one is through any language you can develop listening skill. So throughout the session, I'm going to take English as an example. Okay. So first, once you learn the language, you will develop listening skill also. So when somebody speak, you will understand what they're trying to speak, right? What they're actually telling. And then speaking skills. You try to respond to any questions, whatever they ask, since you know the language. Third one is reading capabilities. Since you have learned the language, you know how to read, how to comprehend, and how to get meaning out of a particular paragraph or article. Then writing skills, right? Since you know how to clearly convey your thoughts through writing. And then finally, research and note taking. You know the language, so you know how to do note taking, all of those things. So these five skills which I've listed in the left side, right? These are the basic skills anyone can acquire through language learning. So far, the teacher or the language teacher, be any teacher, must be stressing on LSRW, which means listening, speaking, reading, writing skills through language. But the best part about language learning is, apart from developing all these basic skills, language learning can also develop 21st century skills. For example, critical thinking. So through language learning, a child can develop critical thinking. The child can develop problem solving skill, analytical skill, digital literacy, and finally metacognition. What do we mean by metacognition? Is it is a ability to understand how one is thinking, right? If I know how my thinking process works or how my thinking looks like, I can strengthen or I can train my brain to learn certain things in an easy way. All the things which I've listed in the right side are 21st century skill, which can also be improved through language learning. Not the basic alone, but also the most essential skill for this century. So we look in detail, like these skills can be developed through strategies, right? So before moving on to the strategies, I would like to post a question. So you might have been teaching the language in your classroom, be it COVID time or before. I just want to understand, what are the strategies as a teacher, as a school leader, or a language instructor you have tried in a classroom to facilitate language learning? What are, let's take an example of English or Hindi, whichever is convenient. I just want to understand what method you have tried to make sure the child is learning the language. So you can either put it in chat box or Q&A. And yeah, Meha ma'am has said ability for decision making. Of course, decision making skill can also be enhanced through language learning. So I have two hands raised. So Bhavna madam, I'm going to unmute from my end. The question is, what are the strategy as a teacher you have tried in your classroom to facilitate language learning? Be it activity or any particular pedagogical method you have tried, please share it with us. Now, ma'am, you can unmute and you can talk to us. I got few inputs. Yes. Uh, yeah, I'm asking, yeah, inside classroom, what strategy you have tried, ma'am? Bhavana ma'am, can you unmute yourself and please talk? It can be any activity. Previously, in the same session, also we have discussed about like doing some activities within the classroom, right? Cube method. There are a lot of methods we have discussed for maths and English. So I just want to understand with respect to English, what strategy you have tried in your classroom, or what strategy your colleague might have tried in your classroom. Anyone, please? Okay, I see someone called G. I'm just going to allow talk. Uh, I have allowed you to talk, Mr. or Mrs. G. Yeah, you can talk, please. Please unmute from your end and you can talk. So, Binam Mama said phonics, sight words, picture reading. Of course, phonics are very important. Sight words helps you to like understand certain vocabulary through actions also. Picture reading, absolutely. And Meha Mama said using flashcards, puzzles, audio, video. Excellent, excellent. Wonderful. So, please share your input. Meanwhile, we'll look at others' input as well. Yeah. So all these method you have tried in your classroom to teach language, right? So
Hello.
what? Yeah, yes, yes,
Ma'am, we are using some flashcards
of course,
uh, or with conversation between two students.
absolutely, absolutely. Now, when
Yes,
you
ma'am.
tried this challenge, particular
The
strategy,
conversation between two students, ma'am, daily practice.
so daily they have to practice.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Is it so, ma'am? Great, great. Ma'am, I also want to understand. Did you face any challenge while implementing this particular strategy, ma'am? I think she's gone on mute again. Thank you for your input, ma'am. So let's get back to our session. So many of you said that you have used flashcards, audio, video, sight words, picture reading. All of these are excellent strategy to make sure that child is learning the language, basically English here for this scenario. So today we will tell you 8 different strategy.
Some
Basically,
some some difficult words also we have practiced daily, ma'am.
okay, great, ma'am, great. That's great. Like difficult words, improving the vocabulary will help them to also strengthen their language skill. Thank you for your input, ma'am. So here in today's session, we look at strategy not only to develop the language skill, but also developing 21st century skills simultaneously. So that's the essence of today's session. So I've categorized the strategy into two different buckets. One is what are the strategies you can use to inculcate language skill along with problem solving skill. Again, the second one is what are the strategies you can use inside the classroom while teaching a language, also ensuring you're inculcating critical thinking skill. Why I have chosen these two things are these two are the essential 21st century skill for the students, right? So we look at the strategy for problem solving now. The first one is communicative language teaching. Second one is task-based language teaching. Third one is the physical response. Fourth one is the silent way. All these four strategy are bucketed under problem solving skill. Whereas the strategy for critical thinking skills are content and language integrated learning, cooperative language learning, grammar translation, and the direct method. So now we'll look at each and every strategy in detail with examples also. The very first one is communicative language learning. The name itself suggests the idea is the student will learn language through interaction. Rightly, few seconds ago, ma'am said every day she'll encourage two students to interact with each other, right? Similar on those lines. Here, the idea is the teacher should focus on the fluency rather than accuracy. You need not to worry about the grammatical things or language rules and all. Just make sure the students are fluent in communication. Importantly, the teacher will act as a facilitator, not the instructor. Yeah. So this is this particular method called communicated language teaching. The examples for the same are you can use these activities for this particular strategy. One is you can do role play. You can give particular situation and ask them to enact, or you can conduct some mock interviews for higher classes. When while how can they appear for a particular admission in a college or university, or you can do some opinion sharing. You can give a topic like why Olympic Games are important, or how do you think India is performing in Olympic Games, and each one can share their opinion. And you can do scavenger hunt also. So all these activity, as I earlier mentioned, apart from problem solving, you're also improving their linguistic skills. Linguistic skills here I'm mentioning as listening, speaking, reading, writing. All the four are covered. And also through activities like opinion sharing and scavenger hunt, you're also inculcating collaboration skill among the students. And one thing to remember, all these strategy will ensure communication skills are developed. Apart from that, only I'm talking about. I just got a response. Let me check. So here, Rajesh sir has said comprehension of concept word and giving unfamiliar setting activity. So he has mentioned he used this particular strategy to for the language learning. Like he can give unfamiliar settings and asking them to like react or do activity based on that. Thank you for your input, Rajesh sir. So you will encourage conversation, Fazia ma'am said. So somebody said to show the previous slide. So I'm just moving to the previous slide. All these materials will be shared with you. Do not worry about that. So let's focus on the next task. So the second method is task-based language learning. As the name suggests, here the children will learn the language by completing a task. So they'll use all their language skill to complete a task. So the task has three phases. One is pre-task, the task itself, and post-task. So I'll just give an example. For example, you can ask them to create a presentation on a topic. Why climate change is important to address right now. If that is the topic, what the student will do, they'll go and do some research. That is pre-task. And then they'll create presentation. They can either do a PPT or they can do in chart or they can even prepare a model for that, right? And post-task is that you will ask them to reflect about their presentation. How did it go? What did they learn? All those things you can ask. So other examples or other activity you can do is that you can ask them to create a video, small documentary, a short video about certain awareness or even certain topic also. You can ask them to write an article, blog, or do some skit, or you can ask them to sit in a group and create a games forming their own rules, or you can even encourage the debate and discussion for particular topic. So when you're doing all this activity, so what will happen is that apart from problem solving, they will enhance their creative skills, right? So they'll come up with new solutions, they'll come up with new idea for doing a presentation, and they'll also improve their digital literacy. They do a lot of research and they'll get the support of a lot of technological tools. That's how the digital literacy skill is also enhanced. So this is the second method. Third method is called the physical response. The idea here is that you will teach the language or facilitate the language through physical movement alone, right? So it will be suitable for lower classes where they are in the initial stage of learning the language. Say, for example, they want to learn simple vocabulary like stand, sit, and bend or turn, write, sing. All these are small, small vocabulary child can learn through actions. So this can be used for lower classes. So basically, it is a coordination of speech and action. Examples are like, you must have heard of this activity, right? Simon says stand up, the child will stand up. Simon says sit down means the child will sit down. Or you can do follow the direction. You can give some instruction. You can ask them to do the same, or you can ask them to do an action story. And then you can ask them to do charades also. One student will come out and enact a particular story or sentence, others has to guess. So this is the few examples of physical response. Through this, basically, first skill which will develop is listening. So the student will keenly listen what the teacher is saying, right? Which vocabulary she is using, right? And then speaking. So when someone is acting out, he or she should understand and comprehend, put it in a clear way. That will enhance their speaking skill along with the problem solving skills. Fourth one, or the last one with respect to problem solving skill, is the silent way, right? You might be wondering how to teach a language uh, when we are silent, right? It is possible through this particular method. So here the idea is the teacher has to be silent for a particular period or particular stage of a lesson. You should make sure that students are taking the lead. So they are the one who are facilitating. Thereby, they will discover the language by themselves, right? Some of the activities you can try under this method are, you can give some puzzles or any problem solving tasks, right? It can be word riddle, or it can be related to any other person, or you can have word and sound games. Two words of same sound but different meanings, or same meanings, or you can even do color chart. So when you are doing this particular activity, you are enabling their analytical skill. They are trying to think like, okay, how to solve this particular puzzle. I've got these many riddles. How should I solve? These are the given data. So you are improving their analytical skill. You are encouraging their creative skills, right? Through color chart or word and sound games, and of course, problem solving skills. So these are the four strategies. Along with communication, you can enable other skill like problem solving. Next four strategy will focus on critical thinking skill, right? The first one is content and language integrated learning. This is an interesting strategy for any teachers to try in their classroom at any point, right? So, for example, if you are a science or maths teacher, you want to complete the syllabus, you don't have time for teaching language like English, right? So this is the strategy you can use at that particular time. So you can combine both subject as well as language together and make sure both learnings are happening simultaneously, right? So this also provides an opportunity for cross-curricular learning. And you can also, for example, you can collaborate with other teacher. A language teacher can collaborate with maths teacher or science teacher in a classroom. They can come together and they can teach both language and subject together. This will be kind of fun for children also, and they will engage actively because this is a new method, right? Some of the example for this particular strategy is a science experiment presentation. You can give a particular topic, for example, gravity. You can ask them to do a presentation. So here they are not only studying about gravity, but also making sure they're conveying the presentation in English. And that itself will enhance their skills. And then you can ask them to do some history role play. For example, some dynasty. You can ask them to enact Gupta dynasty. Who comes first? Who comes later? What are the wars happened during Gupta dynasty? What are the things happened during that particular time? You can also encourage them for geography project or even maths problem solving. Through these particular activity and using this particular strategy, the first skill you will be developing is analytical, because here they'll try to understand the integration between different subjects, right, and communicate it in an effective way. And second one, metacognition. As I said earlier, once they understand how their thinking process will look like, it is easy for them to train the brain to learn in an effective way. And third one, critical thinking will be enhanced through this particular strategy. Next strategy is cooperative language learning. As the name suggests, this entire strategy is based upon cooperation only, right? You will encourage or you will do lot of activity based on cooperation. It will be obviously student-centric approach. Here, along with cooperation, you'll also ask them to work in team or support their peers. Some of the example or activity you can do under this strategy are, you can give group projects. It can be related to any subject or general topic. Or you can also ask them to do jigsaw reading. Basically, if you take a particular subject, one student will be reading the first paragraph, second paragraph will be read by another student. Now these two should comprehend and tell what they read, right? And then you can do some peer teaching. You can encourage one particular group to teach another particular group. Or you can do this collaborative writing. This is wonderful activity. You can give particular topic and ask each one of them to write sentence and present it as a group. So through all these activities and this particular strategy can enhance their social skills, because here they know how to interact with others, how to make sure they are, how to tell their opinion, how to handle disagreement. All these social skills will be developed through this particular method, along with collaboration and critical thinking skills. The next method is grammar translation. This is quite opposite to the very first method which I talked about. Here, basically, it focuses on the rules of the language, right? The grammatical rules. So, grammatical rules and translation plays a major role. So, here, the method majorly focus on the accuracy of the language, how accurate the child is speaking instead of fluency. It helps to develop reading and writing skill, because that's where the grammatical rules matters a lot. Some examples are, you can encourage translation. Say you can give a sentence and ask them to translate in their regional language, or you can do some reading comprehension activities. Give a paragraph, be it storytelling or subject book, right? You can give anything whichever suitable for your class and your lesson plan, and ask them to comprehend. You can do grammar drill. You can do dictation. Dictation in the sense you can read particular paragraph and ask them to write it. It will enhance their writing skill also. Vocabulary matching, they can either match it with their regional language, or matching the vocabulary in different tense forms. So through this particular strategy, the very first skill is they are able to read the language very well, improve their writing skill along with the critical thinking skill, right? The last strategy with respect to critical thinking is the direct method. So here, the idea is you conduct the entire class in English. You teach the language by talking the language itself, right? So you will never use regional language or native language, and you also encourage students not to speak in their native language. So this will put the students in a situation where they have to think and speak in English alone. I think most of you might have tried this in your school. It might have worked very well for the classroom as well. Some of the examples which you can do it in your classroom are, you can have Q&A session. You can ask some basic question. Say, for example, how are you? And you can ask a child to answer. From then you can do counter questions also. Or you can ask them to do to tell a story in English, right? Or conversation circles is basically giving them a topic and sharing their opinion. Again, dictation also. If you want to dictate a particular paragraph, how well they are writing in English. Yeah. So the skills focused through this particular strategy, or skills improved through the particular strategy, are linguistic skills. Here, linguistic skills mean all skills like listening, speaking, reading, writing, because you are doing direct method. You are teaching the language itself. So all the linguistic skills will be developed, and critical thinking will be developed along with creative thinking. So they have to come up with story, or they have to like engage in conversation through their imagination or creativity. So these skills can be enhanced or inculcated by this particular strategy. So far we have looked at what is language learning, why it is important, and how we can inculcate 21st century skill through language learning apart from the basic skill, and what are the strategies you can try in your classroom which will inculcate all these skills. So one thing I want to highlight here is that all these strategies can be tried by any subject teacher depending upon your audience and depending upon your lesson plan. It's not always the job of language teacher to teach the language, right? So language teacher will teach how to speak, read, write in English, but it's a responsibility of all the teacher to take language learning to next level, thereby enhancing the 21st century skills in the students. So that's the basic idea. We'll now move on to the next thing. Before implementing all these strategies, there are few things the teacher need to consider, right? The very first one is you have to create a supportive learning environment. Why it is important is, you are encouraging the children to speak, right? So the environment should be fear free. Children should not have any hesitation or fear in speaking in English. Even if they're speaking it wrongly, You should encourage them and support them to speak continuously. And then you should have a very clear language learning goals. According to your class, according to their learning level, you have to set goals. It should not be either too easy or too difficult to achieve. It should be at optimum level. And then you should provide authentic materials. Since they are learning one of the global language, it is very important to learn it in the right way. If you are suggesting them some resources, be it online or YouTube, so suggest authentic materials only. And make sure you are incorporating technology. Technology has a lot to offer. We will see in coming slide. So it has a lot of resources or tools to offer. Make sure you are using them for your enhancing the learning experience among the students. Important thing is you have to provide immediate feedback when they are learning something new. You have to give feedback to them whether it's right or whether they need to make some correction so that they will learn it in a right way. And you have to celebrate the learning achievement. It is very important to set goals as well as important to celebrate when goals are achieved. This will motivate them to learn a lot. And then you have to promote self reflection because they are learning something, right? You have to encourage them to think, how did, say for example, if you ask a child to do a presentation, ask him, how did you do, what did go well, what do you think need to be improved, how is he planning to improve. Ask him to reflect upon his own performance. Finally, continuously assess and adjust strategies, right? It's very important. You can either use one of these strategy or combination of this strategy, whichever is working, but make sure you are assessing and adjusting accordingly. So since I talked about a lot of strategy, I'll just show you a simple lesson plan how you can incorporate in your classroom as well. I'll just share my screen. So this is one simple lesson plan which you have put together. So the idea here is that a science teacher is going to teach density, right? So the approach he or she will take is content and language integrated learning. This is the key approach they are taking. Why? Because he or she want to teach density as well as he or she wanted to enhance their language learning skills, right? So the objective here is one to teach density, and with respect to language, they are going to teach sequencing words or certain vocabulary and certain comparatives with respect to grammar, like lighter, heavier, denser, all these things, right? So everything is explained very clearly in the objective. And we also given like how we are going to assess and what is the expected learning. So before starting the lesson, the teacher will ask question to understand what is a prior knowledge with respect to density. And then what the teacher is doing here is the teacher will conduct a demonstration, a small experiment to explain density, right? He or she will bring a lot of materials, put it in the water to see which one is floating or which one is dropping down. Through this activity, he or she is teaching density as well as some vocabulary like heavy, light, heavier, lighter, all these things. And then under guided practice, he or she is encouraging the children to do the demonstration. Now they will collect certain materials and they will put it in the water and they will tell what's happening. They will talk about their observation. Like, yes, oil is not sinking, stone is sinking. So stone is heavier than water or denser than water. So all these things, they will talk about their observation. Then slowly teacher will move to independent practice where he or she will encourage them to try at home and bring a brief writing about which object they have done this density experiment with and what had happened, right? So that's how this particular lesson plan we have designed. So if you see this lesson plan, the key strategies the teacher used is content and language. He or she has integrated science along with English. But if you look closely, he or she also did combination of different strategy. For example, task based. So he or she did an experiment. I asked the child to observe or do some writings. So multiple strategy can be inculcated or incorporated in a lesson plan depending upon your students and your whatever you want to teach for that particular day. So this lesson plan will also be shared with you. You can keep this as a reference and you can use it inside your classroom. Moving ahead, So we talked a lot about strategies, benefits. Now let's look at it. What are the tools and resources which are available so that you can use all those things to make sure you are enhancing the learning experience, language learning experience among the students. There are many and multiple number of tools and resources available. Here I've listed on only few. I've given some others in the handout also, which you will receive. So let's look at those things precisely here. The first one is grammar monster, right? As the name suggests, this is like something which is completely related to grammar, right? You have information about certain grammar topics, you have explanation, you have assessment, all of these things. So this is grammar monster. Let's have a look at it. So this is how the grammar monster page will look like. I hope you all can see my screen. So if you look at, so this is the home page. You can see A to Z grammar terms, punctuation, easily confused words, games and tests also available, right? So you can go for A to Z grammatical terms, right? So you have like lot of grammatical terms. Whichever you want to start, you can start. For example, nouns. So they're given the explanation of nouns, examples of nouns, and they're given some picture representation as well as also, right? So this is something you can either use it for your own as a study material, or can you encourage students to go and study about grammar. So here you also have games and tests they can try with respect to any terms, right? Be it nouns or conjunction. Let's go for adverbs. See, these are tests on adverbs. You can even click on any of these things. So click on adverbs. So they're given list of verbs, adverbs, and with among with other words. So now they have to click on whether it is an adverb or not, and they can even check the answers, right? So this is something you can try inside a classroom immediately. Moving ahead, the next tool I'm going to talk about is English Club. So this is again free online resources, which again has like not only for grammar, but for listening, speaking, pronunciation, all topics under English are covered with some games and quizzes also. So I'll show how the page will look like. This is how the English Club page will look like. So if you see, you have for grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation, listening, speaking, reading, writing, all these things are there. So if I go for vocabulary, if I click on vocabulary, it will tell about like what is this and what are the quizzes available, right? I'm going to click on vocabulary quiz. You can see there are quizzes already available. Like there are multiple quizzes. You can click on anything, or you can go according to the topic. If you want to teach something related to animals or computers or country, you can give this particular quiz. This is an online quiz again. You can check the answers immediately. So this is the second tool. The third tool is Easy World of English. So this is, I would say, this is self-study website. Even the teachers can use for themselves also to enhance their language learning skills. Here you can practice grammar, pronunciation, reading, listening, vocabulary. I'll show the page also. So this is how Easy World of English will look like. So again, this is a free online resources. If you go to courses, you have topics like grammar, reading, picture dictionary, pronunciation. If I go for grammar, it will have multiple levels. So I clicked on grammar level 1. So this is how the page will look like, right? You have lessons. So whichever lessons you want to start, you can start. Like the verb be or the verb conjunction, all these things you can learn through this lesson. So you can have examples. All these things are covered in this particular website. You can, whenever you are free, you can go back and look at this website and explore the same. Coming back. So these are some of the tools and resources which I thought will be useful for you, which you can use inside the classroom. Apart from this, there are again multiple tools. You can do your own research, and we are given something in the handout also. Before moving on this, I do know like during COVID times, you might have tried different tools and resources to encourage language learning in your classroom, right? Can you share what are the tools you have tried or online resources you have used for language learning inside your classroom? particularly during COVID times, or if you are using still, you can share that also. Many of you might have used YouTube or particular channel in YouTube. Please share that input as well. Chat box or Q&A box also. So what are some of the resources you have tried to make sure the children are learning English through online resources? Inputs. Teachment, yeah. Guru Prasad sir has said that he had tried teachment. Thank you for sharing that, sir. This will be helping us to also explore new opportunities, teachers. So please share your inputs. Teachment, Zoom, okay, sir. Any other online tools, especially for language? Any YouTube channel you have focused or you think would be better for students? You can suggest the same also, so that other teachers also can learn from that. Any other online tools? Yeah. So what I would encourage all the teachers is that please go back and look at these tools and online resources and see whether how much this can be helpful in your classroom. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you, ma'am. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Pandemic most of the world children transfer from face to face in classroom, madam.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Virtual education setup at home.
Yes. Did you use any particular website or software, ma'am? Like YouTube, if you have used any channel?
Ma'am.
Name them, ma'am, please. Like which
Pogo
channel?
channel.
Please go ahead, ma'am. So you predominantly gave them in through YouTube channel or any other videos you have shared, ma'am, apart from YouTube? I think there's a connection problem. So once she come back, will continue the conversation. Yes. So that's one input from my end. Like, please go back and research about these tools and see how much it can be helpful in your classroom setup. And it can be suitable for any teachers whenever you want to do certain activity inside your classroom, right? So moving ahead, let's look at our case study, right? So far, we have learned about or we saw about what is language learning, what are the benefits, and how we can strengthen the language skills or 21st century skills through language by using certain strategy. What are the online tools and resources available? So let's look at two cases. The first case here is, so the principal of ABC school, right? He wants to inculcate this habit of spoken English among his students, right? Every school leader's aim will be, my children should be able to speak in English. But the students, because of lack of confidence and hesitant and because of fear, they are not able to speak in English. They are sticking back to their native language. They're speaking in their regional language itself for communication. In this scenario, how can the school leader effectively motivate the students to engage in English conversation? So I'm going to launch a poll. So, what do you think the school leaders should do to encourage the students to speak in English, motivate the students to speak in English? So, you have different option. You can motivate all the, so you can choose the option also. You can motivate all the teachers to speak in English and thereby encourage the students, or you can impose some penalties on students who are using the regional language, or you can assign the language teacher solely in charge for communicating in English. So, what do you think the strategy the particular school leader should follow to make sure that children are speaking in English? So we have good number of participants so far. Only 16% have put down their polls. I would encourage everyone to put down your polls and see what strategy works, right? Okay, let's look at the polls. So I'm going to show you the result. Okay, I'm going to show you the results. So most of them said that motivate all teachers to speak in English. I think that is the best strategy, to be encouraged inside the classroom so that even teachers as well as the students are speaking in English in a very positive environment, right? Okay, I got few inputs in the question and Q&A session. So Meha teacher has said Poho, Choo TV, Infobells and other videos for their very good, ma'am. And she tried in short also recording her own video. Thank you for thank you for sharing your input, and thank you Rajesh sir for sharing your input as well. We'll go on to the next case study. In second case, here the school leader of XYZ school, he wanted to establish English as a primary mode of communication in his school, right? He want all the teachers as well as the student to speak in English. But certain teacher believes that speaking in English or teaching English is a responsibility of language teacher, English teacher basically, not them. And they are sticking back to their own routine and trying to complete their syllabus only. In this particular scenario, how can or which strategy the school leader can integrate subject as well as language learning together, right? Which strategy would be best? Subject teacher want to complete their syllabus, whereas um, the school leader also want to inculcate the English speaking also. So I'm going to launch a poll. Which strategy you think would best work for this scenario, where they are combining both subject as well as the language? Do you think it's communicative language or grammar translation, task based, or content language? Kindly cast a poll, please, so that we'll also understand like how much of learning has happened in this particular session. What strategy the school leader should use? We want to combine both subject as well as language. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. So I'm going to publish the result. Many of you said correctly, it's content and language integrated learning. The topic itself suggests content and language are integrated together to teach subject as well as language together. Right? That's the best strategy you can use. Yeah. Thank you for putting a poll. I'll be back. Yes. So these are like few cases I wanted to like talk about. So let's look what we have gone through the entire session. So the very first thing is that students can develop 21st century through language learning. It's not just the basic listening, reading, speaking skill, but through language learning, students can develop skills like problem solving, critical thinking, metacognition, analytical skill, digital literacy. All these can be developed through language learning. And teachers can use any of the above mentioned strategy or combination of these strategy to inculcate problem solving skill or critical thinking skill along with other skills mentioned. And it's very important for the teacher to choose the right tool and resources with respect to their student learning as well as what they want to teach. So these are the few things we are covered in today's session. I hope the session was quite insightful for all of you. Let's also look at few Vartana programs which we are offering. This is also in alignment with the 21st century skills. The first one is LEAD. So LEAD School will help you to integrate your school as a tech-based learning solution. It's basically, so it will help you to develop curriculum, teaching methods and books and other materials also. It majorly focuses on enhancing students' English skill and coding skill through tech-based, right? It's completely a tech-based learning solution. Even Kayan is also a tech-based solution. So it is called Knowledge Vehicle. It's a portable what do you call portable device which has like multimedia computer along with the data projector, TV tuner, audio system, all under one thing which can be ported, and this will help teacher to make sure the classes are very interactive, vibrant, and creating a learning space effectively. So these are the two things Vartana's partnered with. If you want to have any conversation on this, please put it in the feedback form. So moving ahead, I just wanted to pause here and is there any question related to the session, right? So we talked about language learning, we talked about benefit strategy. If you have any question, please put the question in the Q&A session or in the chat box. Meanwhile, I'll put the link for feedback form in the Q&A box, right? So this is the feedback link form. You have sufficiently spent good amount of time with us to understand what this language learning and how can we inculcate 21st century skills among the students through language learning. So it is very important to get your feedback as well about the session. It also helps us to send participation certificate to you for attending this session. So I've just put down the link for feedback form. So take couple of minutes, put down your feedback. I'll also put it in the chat box as well. Meanwhile, if someone has question, please share your question in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. We can address the same. If you don't have question, kindly fill the feedback form. It will help us to reflect and make a session better, as well as to send the participation certificate to you. If you have any other questions related to the session or any other product about Vartana or any other thing which we are offering, please write it to hello@vartana.com, or you can contact through this particular number. I've shared the feedback form. Kindly, I'll wait for like couple more minutes. Kindly fill the form before leaving. We will share all the materials to you along with the participation certificate also. If you have any questions, please share. We'll address all the questions and clarification right now. So somebody asked, what is the importance of dictation for a learning of language? So dictation here, what I meant by Matthew sir, basically, dictation will help them in listening as well as writing, right? So when teacher, so many of times you must have seen that in exam, right? When child is prepared well, still struggling to put down certain words in writing. They might make spelling errors, or they might make grammatical errors, or they might be feeling difficult to form a sentence. So these challenges can be overcome through dictation, because in language learning, writing skill is very, very important, right? That's how you communicate what you want to. Even in future job opportunity, the students has to be good at writing well. So dictation is one of the method or strategy where they can just listen to the teacher, what teacher is saying, understand, comprehend, and put it into sentence. That's how dictation ka importance is here. I hope I answered your question. If you need still more clarity, I'll just talk about it more. Diagrams or experiment or problems. Ma'am, could you please explain on what you want diagrams, experiment, or problems? That will help me to answer your question better. Ma'am, Mega ma'am, I've pasted the feedback form again in chat Q&A box. If you still can't see, after this webinar, we will immediately send a thank you mail to your email ID. In whichever email ID you have registered, you will receive the feedback form. Please fill the feedback form so that you will receive the participation certificate. Would you want to explain more about what is your question about? G, somebody mentioned as G, some diagrams of experimental problems. I hope today's session was quite insightful for all of you here. So we've discussed language learning, what is language learning and how it can improve 21st century skill. So it's a kind request from my end. Teachers, do not see language as just writing, speaking, or reading. Please see it in a different way, like how language can inculcate or improve child's 21st century skills like problem solving, critical thinking, analytical. So it's a kind request from my end, not just language teacher, but it's responsibility for all the teacher to make sure the child is getting all the 21st century skill through language learning. Please try all the method which you have discussed today and see how it is working for your classroom and your students. All the best for all of you, and thank you for joining this webinar. I hope the webinar was useful. See you in the next webinar. Thank you. You have filled the feedback for how to teach science subject using language skills. Definitely, ma'am. So I have explained that particular thing in content and language integrated learning. So we will share the lesson plan with you in detail also, so you can look back and you can see how science can be integrated. So through that particular method, you can integrate both science as well as language. Please refer the sample lesson plan, which we will share it with you. Thank you so much, everyone. If you have filled the feedback form, you may leave the session. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, ma'am.